strict gun laws is not the thing that is going to solve this problem. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools.
Senator J.D. Vance is getting pushback online for saying that school shootings are a fact of life. Okay. Now, the comments were made at an Arizona rally on Thursday following a deadly shooting at a Georgia high school that killed 4. It is the 45th school shooting in the United States so far this year, which would make, I guess, J.D. Vance right in that it is a fact of life. And I would agree that I don't like it. The only issue is Republicans are the ones that are blocking us from actually doing something about it. I know. In fact, this also comes after Vice President Kamala Harris and Tim Walz called for increased gun control in their own campaign rallies following the shooting. Quote, "We don't have to like the reality that we live in, but it is the reality we live in. We've got to deal with it." Well, how? How does J.D. Vance plan to deal with it? By turning our schools into prisons, essentially. I mean, what do you think that hardening schools means? More security, thick doors, cameras. Why stop there? Just put bars on the windows, you know? And give everyone a strip search and a jumpsuit as soon as they get into the school. Why not? Or maybe just move the school into the prisons themselves. That way, if any black or disabled students decide to act up, well, they're already in prison. So, look, this isn't a hyperbole. This is insane. This is insanity. Why are we doing this? Why is the only discussion of we need to make schools into an impenetrable fortress to, protect against the massive, mass shooters that are out there, instead of trying to limit access to the weapons these mass shooters are using, and also making sure that, hey, people have mental health care, right? People have social services inside the schools, so they don't get to the point where they feel like they should grab a gun. Could we do that? Could we do that? No, apparently not. And look, to show you that, having more armed officers in schools or armed teachers isn't exactly as, very effective, right? At the Appalachia High School, where this had happened, they had an armed school resource officer. Now, that armed officer stopped the shooter, successfully engaged, and actually did so very quickly. Unfortunately, it's not quick enough. 4 people still died. By the time a school resource officer is actually able to deal with the shooter, it's usually too late. People are already dead. That's the problem here. It's too much reacting and not enough being proactive, okay? Look, here's the thing too. There's more data behind this. Research shows that 2/3 of schools with incidents, and that's what they call them, mass shooting incidents, right, had security guards or sworn law enforcement officers there. And despite the growing police presence, security guard and other personnel presence in schools, the number of school shootings has only increased. So that's not an issue. J.D. Vance says, well, we got to harden our schools. We got to get more security in there. We got to do all that. Schools are already fairly hard targets, okay? With, again, 2/3 of these schools have an armed officer there to deal with it. And still, that's not dissuading mass shooters from targeting them, because it's not about that. And the reason, by the way, that this is ineffective, right, is that the school shooters don't pick a target based on whether or not it's easy, because they don't expect to come out alive. They don't. They know it is a one-way trip. They know that once they're in there, once they do what they have to do, that they're not going to make it out alive. And so this whole idea of, oh, let's just make it a not appealing target, it's not going to be effective, okay? It's not going to prevent them from going into the school in the first place. So it doesn't make any sense. Reacting is not the answer. Being proactive is the answer, okay? The best way to prevent school shootings is to not have a school shooting happen in the first place. To not have that student or ex-student or whatever pick up that gun and bring it into the school. And by the way, it's not just the gun control measures, like raising the age to be able to buy a gun to 21 and doing the background checks that are going to be effective. That's part of the solution, but that's not the entire solution. You also have to make sure the students feel supported. That means conflict resolution, stress management, and of course, teaching empathy in the schools for their fellow classmates. That's it. Ensuring that everyone has access to mental health services. It's another way to prevent violence. But J.D. Vance and Republicans, you can see that they do not support funding those things. And not only that, but they also believe that teaching children empathy is bad. You're going to teach the children to be weak and sad. What are you, gay? That's what it's going to do. It's going to make you gay. It's going to make you trans or something. What? They hate the idea of social workers, mental health professionals, in the schools instead of bars and police officers with guns. They hate the idea of having children actually talk about their feelings. That's it. This is a toxic mentality that completely ignores the fact that children are human beings. I know, they have feelings. And unlike adults, they're not as able to control their feelings. Some adults. There's some adults out there that absolutely also cannot control their feelings and how they act based on those feelings. But you have to address the root causes here. And look, the problem, the people that are perpetrating these mass shootings in the first place, guess what? They're mostly white, cisgender young men. That's their reality. And it's not always that, but most of the time, that's who's doing the shootings. White young men. There is a problem in the culture, okay? And you've got to address that. It doesn't mean young white men are evil and violent and terrible. It just means that there is an issue here that is causing some of them to be violent, to act out in these ways. And instead of reacting, we should be preventing this by working on changing that root cause. Maybe to allow young white men to be treated like human beings, to allow them to have feelings, to allow them to express their emotions in a positive way, to be able to deal with conflict in a productive way instead of a destructive way. I don't know, I'm just throwing things out there. But if that makes me weak and gay, well, okay, whatever. At least I'm actually trying to solve the problem instead of allowing for bodies of dead children to continue to be stacked up every single year. If that makes you strong, well, then I don't want to be strong. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.